holy, a pair of red and white football stockings, a Chinese coat, and 2 old muslin curtains, which, rolled up, made turbans of enormous size and fierceness. On the landing outside cousin Ethel's open door, Alison paused and said, "I say!" "Oh, come on," said Conrad. "We haven't fixed the Chinese lanterns yet, and it's getting dark." "You go on," said Alison. "I've just thought of something." The children were allowed to play in the boat so long as they didn't loose it from its moorings. The painter was extremely long, and quite the effect of coming home from a long voyage was produced when the 3 boys pushed the boat out as far as it would go, among the boughs of the beech tree which overhung the water, and then reappeared in the circle of red and yellow light thrown by the Chinese lanterns. "What ho! Ashore there!" shouted the captain. "What ho!" said a voice from the shore, which, Alison explained, was disguised. "We be 3 poor mariners," said Conrad by a happy effort of memory, "just newly come to shore. We seek news of the Princess of Tripoli."
"She's in her palace," said the disguised voice. "Wait a minute and I'll tell her you're here. But what do you want her for?"
"A poor minstrel of France. Go on, Con." "A poor minstrel of France," said Conrad. "All right, I remember. Who has heard of the princess's beauty, has come to lay "His heart," said Alison. "All right, I know. His heart at her something or other feet."
"Pretty feet,"
said Alison.
"I go to tell the princess."
Next moment, from the shadows on the bank, a radiant vision stepped into the circle of light, crying, "Oh, Rudel, is it indeed thou? Thou art come at last. Oh, welcome to the arms of the princess."
"What do I do now?"
whispered Rudel, who was Kenneth, in the boat, and at the same moment Conrad and George said, as with one voice, "My hat! Alison, won't you catch it?" For at the end of the princess's speech she had thrown back her veils and revealed a blaze of splendour. She wore several necklaces, one of seed pearls, one of topazes, and one of Australian shells, besides a string of amber and one of coral. And the front of the red flannel blouse was studded with brooches, in one at least of which diamonds gleamed. Each arm had 1 or 2 bracelets, and on her clenched hands glittered as many rings as any princess could wish to wear. So her brothers had some excuse for saying, "You'll catch it." "No, I shan't. It's my look out anyhow. Do shut up," said the princess, stamping her foot. "Now then, Ken, go ahead. Ken, you say, 'Oh, lady, I faint with rapture.'" "I faint with rapture," said Kenneth stolidly. "Now I land, don't I?" He landed and stared at the jewelled hand the princess held out. "At last," she said. "But you ought to say that, Ken. I say, I think I'd better be an eloping princess, and then I can come in the boat. Rudel dies, really, but that's so dull. Lead me to your ship, O noble stranger, for you have won the princess, and with you I will live and die. Give me your hand, can't you, silly, and do mind my train." So Kenneth led her to the boat, and with some difficulty, for the satin train got between her feet, she managed to flounder into the punt. "Now you stand and bow," she said. "Fair Rudel, with this ring I thee wed." She pressed a large amethyst ring into his hand. "Remember that the Princess of Tripoli is yours for ever. Now let's sing Integer Vitae, because it's Latin." So they sat in the boat and sang, and presently the servants came out to listen and admire, and at the sound of the servants' approach the Princess veiled her shining splendour. "It's prettier than what the Coventry pageant was, so it is," said the cook. "But it's long past your bedtimes, so come on out of that there dangerous boat, there's dears." So then the children went to bed, and when the house was quiet again, Alison slipped down and put back Ethel's jewellery, fitting the things into their cases and boxes as correctly as she could. "Ethel won't notice," she thought. But of course Ethel did. So that next day each child was asked separately by Ethel's mother who had been playing with Ethel's jewellery. And Conrad and George said that they would rather not say. This was a form they always used in that family when that sort of question was asked, and it meant, "It wasn't me, and I don't want to sneak." And when it came to Alison's turn, she found to her surprise and horror that instead of saying, "I played with them," she had said, "I would rather not say." Of course the mother thought that it was Kenneth who had had the jewels to play with. So when it came to his turn he was not asked the same question as the others, but his aunt said, "Kenneth, you are a very naughty little boy to take your cousin Ethel's jewellery to play with." "I didn't," said Kenneth. "Hush, hush," said the aunt. "Do not make your fault worse by untruthfulness. And what have you done with the amethyst ring?" Kenneth was just going to say that he had given it back to Alison, when he saw that this would be sneakish. So he said, getting hot to the ears, "You don't suppose I've stolen your beastly ring, do you, Auntie?" "Don't you dare to speak to me like that," the aunt very naturally replied. "No, Kenneth, I do not think you would steal, but the ring is missing and it must be found." Kenneth was furious and frightened. He stood looking down and kicking the leg of the chair. "You had better look for it. You will have plenty of time, because I shall not allow you to go to the picnic with the others. The mere taking of the jewellery was wrong, but if you had owned your fault and asked Ethel's pardon, I should have overlooked it. But you have told me an untruth, and you have lost the ring. You are a very wicked child, and it will make your dear mother very unhappy when she hears of it. That her boy should be a liar! It is worse than being a thief." At this Kenneth's fortitude gave way, and he lost his head. "Oh, don't!" he said. "I didn't! I didn't! I didn't! Oh, don't tell mother I'm a thief and a liar! Oh, Aunt Effie, please, please don't!" And with that he began to cry. Any doubts Aunt Effie might have had were settled by this outbreak. It was now quite plain to her that Kenneth had really intended to keep the ring. "You will remain in your room till the picnic party has started," the aunt went on, "and then you must find the ring. Remember, I expect it to be found when I return. And I hope you will be in a better frame of mind, and really sorry for having been so wicked." "Mayn't I see Alison?" was all he found to say. And the answer was, "Certainly not. I cannot allow you to associate with your cousins. You are not fit to be with honest, truthful children." So they all went to the picnic, and Kenneth was left alone. When they had gone he crept down and wandered furtively through the empty rooms, ashamed to face the servants, and feeling almost as wicked as though he had really done something wrong. He thought about it all over and over again, and the more he thought the more certain he was that he had handed back the ring to Alison last night, when the voices of the servants were first heard from the dark lawn. But what was the use of saying so? No one would believe him, and it would be sneaking anyhow. Besides, Perhaps he hadn't handed